Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner led on Thursday the commemoration of the 20th anniversary of Nestor Kirchner presidential inauguration in Argentina. At least 13 Palestinians were wounded during a new Israeli military riot in the Aqaba refugee camp near the West Bank city of Jericho. The United Nations Tribunal for War Crimes committed in Rwanda announced the capture of Rwandan genocide suspect Fulgence Kashimeka in South Africa after being in the run since 2001. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. With the support of progressive forces in Argentina, Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner led on Thursday the commemoration of the 20th anniversary of Nestor Kirchner presidential inauguration. With the Vice President as the only speaker, the event was organized by the Everybody's Front party at the iconic Plaza de Mayo, where all the sectors on the ruling party were present. Vice President Fernández made a brief account of the pension situation when Nestor Kirchner became president. From the moment he took office, Kirchner began a path of moral reparation, social justice, and human rights in Argentina.
When he arrived in Argentina, only a few people were retiring. Workers' resources have been privatized and given to the famous AFJP. Only a retirement of 200 pesos for those who had completed all the years and made all the contributions.
On Wednesday, the Mixed Commission within the Brazilian Congress approved a proposal to reshuffle the Ministry of Environment and Indigenous People. The commission was set up to discuss a provisional measure to create the structure of ministries in the government of Lula da Silva. The makers who drafted the bill propose relevant changes which will have to go through the plenary of both chambers of the legislature. The changes include extending responsibility for the recognition of and demarcation of indigenous lands from the Ministry of Indigenous People and the responsibility for the Rural Environmental Registry from the Ministry of the Environment. In a political victory for the Lula administration, Brazil's Congress has just passed a bill that partially undoes a 2017 constitutional amendment freezing social spending increase. In Rio de Janeiro, our correspondent Brian Meir has more.
The Lula administration overcame a major hurdle today, passing its new economic bill in Congress designed to bypass the constitutional amendment that took place shortly after the 2016 coup, freezing all government spending for 20 years. The Arcabouço Fiscal, as it's called, maintains some limits in spending, but it now enables the government to increase spending on important social projects and other items of the government agenda to up to 70% equivalent of the previous year's GDP raise. And in cases when there's a recession, it's still able to increase spending by 0.6% above inflation. Now, the bill is being criticized by some people on the left for not going far enough, for maintaining spending limits. It's important to recognize that the Workers' Party only has 11% of the seats in Congress. And in order to govern, Lula has been forced to negotiate with many center-right parties that supported the Bolsonaro administration for the last 4 years. Now, importantly, minimum wage hikes have been left out of this bill. The government will be able to increase minimum wage any way it wants if it passes the Senate, where it's going now after it's just been passed in Congress. So it may not be what voters expected, but it's a step forwards towards undoing all of the damage that resulted in massive increases in poverty and inequality after the 2016 coup against Dilma Rousseff, and it's an important political victory for the Lula government.
The High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission, Josep Borrell, arrived on Wednesday in Cuba to pay an official visit. As part of his agenda, Borrell will preside together with Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez, the third Cuba-European Union Joint Council to be held on Friday, May the 26th in Havana. During the Joint Council, the parties will evaluate the status of implementation of the political dialogue and cooperation agreements signed on December the 12th, 2016, and provisionally enforced on November 2017. In Cuba, the second extraordinary session of the National Assembly of People's Powers on its 10th legislature started sessioning on Thursday. In his opening remarks, the President of the National Assembly of People's Powers, Esteban Lazos Hernandez, recalled that this second extraordinary session of the legislative body will assess issues such as the situation of the national economy and will debate a draft bill regulating social communication. The Permanent Work Commission will also be constituted and they will learn about the legislative program of the present terms, among other issues. In Mexico, huge amounts of ash expelled by the Popocatépetl volcano are afflicting the economy of nearby towns. Following the volcano's increasing activity, people living in nearby areas are forced to sweep the ashes off the streets on a daily basis, as concerns grown about the impact of the ashes on their corpses and farm animals. The ashes are also affecting the people's health, causing discomfort in the eyes and the throats of some children. The Mexican army is helping people to clean up. The Popocatépetl volcano woke up in 1994 after a long period of inactivity, and since early May it has been spitting gas and rocks.
Volcano ashes are all over the pavement, and ashes cause itching, and children are complaining of discomfort in their eyes and throats.
The first day was really bad because there was a thick layer of ashes on the streets. Now it has greatly diminished and we are not using face masks as much as in the beginning, although I think we still should.
Let's take a very short break now, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday in the United States, thousands of protesters gathered in Miami after the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced he will run for president in 2024. Pro-immigrant groups and representatives of the LGBTQ community gathered outside Four Seasons South Florida hotel, where founders for the DeSantis campaign is being held. Demonstrators protest against the immigration law signed by DeSantis and governor's policies implemented during his administration, which included the controversial Don't Say Gay law that bans sexual orientation and gender identity classes in schools.
We want to show the state of Florida and the nation that Florida and the people stand united against hate, against fascism, against DeSantis. That we need a leader that writes laws with compassion and fairness and actual freedom in mind. What's the leading cause of death in children? Is it drag shows? No, it's not drag shows, it's guns. Good thing we don't have a leader who signed a permitless carry bill into law. Shit, DeSantis did sign a permitless carry bill into law, and a 6-week abortion ban, and limiting students' ability to learn, and just...
May 25th marks a grim date in history. 3 years ago, a black man, George Floyd, was killed by a white police officer who kneeling on his neck for 9 minutes. George Floyd's death was captured on video and sparked nationwide rage and outrage in the U.S. and international outrage about police brutality and racial injustice. After the incident, Black Lives Matter, defund police, and other anti-brutality and anti-racism movements urged change in police protocols and a detailed investigation of racist baits into the force. Now, 3 years later, and after the death of other black persons at the hands of law enforcement agents, President Joe Biden urged Congress to enact a full police reform. According to year-on-year statistics, the rate of fatal police shooting among black Americans is much higher than for any other ethnicity, standing at 5.9 fatal shooting per million people per year between 2015 and March 2023. Four days ahead of Turkey's runoff presidential elections, early voting at diplomatic missions abroad has come to an end. While over 60 million eligible domestic voters will be heading to the polls again this Sunday, 3.4 million voters living abroad began casting their early votes at diplomatic missions in over 70 countries since May the 20th. According to Turkish agencies, over 1.5 million people had already cast their ballots at diplomatic missions one day before the polls closed. Even though the polls closed at diplomatic missions on Wednesday, Turks living abroad can still cast their votes upon arrival or the departure at points of entry until the evening of election day. In the first round of the presidential elections, incumbent President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has earned 49.52% of the vote, while his main challengers, opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, received 44.88%. On Wednesday, China's Foreign Ministry's spokesman Mao Ning accused the U.S. of being a hacker empire after Washington, its Western partners, and Microsoft said state-sponsored Chinese hackers has infiltrated U.S. critical infrastructure networks.
That no change in tactics can alter the fact that the United States is a hacker empire. I remember in September last year, relevant Chinese institutions released a report detailing the cyber attacks by the U.S. National Security Agency on Northwestern Polytechnical University in China. The U.S. should immediately address the relevant cyber attack activities rather than deflecting by spreading disinformation.
In trade dispute, China has confirmed that its Ministry of Commerce is to visit the U.S. this week. On Thursday, China's Ministry of Commerce spokesperson Xu Jinping said that Ministry Rwanda went out will met with U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo and U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai while the U.S. to attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Trade Mission meetings. China-U.S. relations are the allies limits as the Biden administration has maintained the tariff of Chinese imports as force under former President Donald Trump, and along with Japan and Netherlands, they also have blocked Chinese companies from accessing cutting-edge computer chips technology, arguing security reasons.
This is an abuse of export regulations and a deviation from free trade and international economic and trade rules. This will severely damage the interests of Chinese and Japanese enterprises and trade cooperation between China and Japan, impacting the security and stability of the global semiconductor supply chain. China strongly opposes this.
teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat. Dial 461 and join our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. At least 13 Palestinians were wounded during an Israeli military raid in Aqaba Yar refugee camp near the West Bank city of Jericho. As a result of the riot, 14 Palestinians youth were arrested. According to the Wafa news agency, local sources reported that Israeli troops entered the camp from multiple directions, deploying snipers on rooftops. Likewise, more than 50 homes were raided, including those belonging to the governor of Jericho and Jordan Village territories and his son. During the operation, living roads were fired at Palestinian youth, leaving 13 individuals wounded, with one in critical conditions. And also in Palestine, Israeli soldiers broke once again into the Al-Aqsa Mosque, considering the third holiest place in Islam. Local sources confirmed that about 200 Israeli soldiers broke into the esplanade of the mosque under the protection of the Israeli police. This comes at a time when Israeli forces are intensifying hostilities against Palestinians attempting to enter the mosque to facilitate the entrance of the Israeli soldiers. The Islamic Christian Committee, in support of Jerusalem amidst sharing warns on Tuesday that new attempts by Israeli Judaization target Al-Aqsa Mosque will undermine its Islamic identity. In Sudan, new clashes broke out on Tuesday night between the army and the Rapid Support Force paramilitary group, despite a week-long ceasefire agreement signed in Saudi Arabia. The ceasefire came into force on Monday to facilitate the delivery of and distribution of humanitarian assistance and to restore essential services. However, fighting erupted in and around Khartoum on Tuesday, while both sides issued statements accusing each other of violating the ceasefire. On Thursday, the United Nations Tribunal for War Crimes committed in Rwanda announced that the capture of Rwandan genocide suspect Fun Helsen Yakishima in South Africa after being on the run since 2001. Shikema is accused of orchestrating the killing of approximately 2,000 Tutsi people at the Naida Catholic Church during the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, according to the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals. Kishima was indicted by the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda in 2001, which charged him with genocide and crimes against humanity for killing and other crimes committed in the Kibuye prefecture. As the African Union celebrates its 60th anniversary, as delegates from across the continent gathered in Addis Ababa for the opening ceremony to mark the occasion. Member states review their success, challenges, milestones, and way forward in all areas and issues they have tackled since last year. In this sense, Moussa Faki Maram, former Chadian Prime Minister and chairperson of the African Union Commission, made an opening statement welcoming those in attendance during his speech. Mohamed highlighted this celebration of the 60th anniversary as an opportunity to recognize the role and contribution of founders of the continental organization who have contributed to the political liberation and socio-economic emancipation of Africa.
The consequence of the intensification of the hegemony struggle between the great powers in this international context of conflicting geopolitical interests, the will of both parties threatens to transform Africa into a geostrategic battlefield, thus recreating a new version of the Cold War that is very detrimental to the effectiveness of multilateralism, of which global peace and security depend. In this zero-sum game where the gains of others would translate into losses for Africa, we must resist all forms of instrumentalization of our member states.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials from Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.